Good afternoon. My name is Susan Doyle, and I will be facilitator today on behalf of Lean Construction Ireland. I would like to welcome you to this Lean Construction Ireland webinar presented by Tom Noctor, Team Lead Strategic Project Consultants from Procore Technologies. The title of this webinar is Implement Lean Processes by Streamlining Site and Office Collaboration. If you have a question, please type it in the question box and we will consolidate and ask Tom after his presentation. If there are any questions that we don't get answered during the webinar, we will follow up by email afterwards. The speaker for today is Tom Noctor. Tom is a strategic product consultant focusing on all aspects of the Procore platform and more widely on UK and Ireland industry issues such as visual design, coordination and BIM modelling. He has over 13 years experience in the AEC industry and joined Procore after a number of years as BIM manager at Ardmac Group. I will now hand you over to Tom to start his presentation. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on implementing lean processes by streamlining site and office collaboration. The purpose of today's webinar is really to give you all an understanding of how a construction ecosystem can support in not only implementing lean processes, but also increase the adoption and ROI for you and your company. Just in terms of the agenda, we are going to go through, okay, what is the digital construction ecosystem? We'll cover the challenges that construction businesses face today. We will then dive into how you implement a lean processes via platform technology. And finally then, before Q&A, we'll finish up on the importance of an open API. Okay, so the digital construction ecosystem, what is it? When we look at traditional methods of managing construction, either it be via software or manually in pen and paper, it's very clear that how we managed it is fragmented. People have to remember, what software is used for what, who they contact for certain issues. There's a risk of duplicate information across the system. There's also a risk of working off out-of-date information, such as drawings. Departments work very siloed, with minimal or no communication at all between departments. This all results in very reactive approaches to project delivery. And especially if issues arise, it can become even more challenging. So what is the ecosystem? The ecosystem is basically the complete opposite of what we've just described. It's one place for everyone in a project to collaborate and communicate. And I'd like to give you an example of how this works. Let's say an RFI is created or an issue arises on site and we need to create an RFI. That RFI may result in a variation. That variation then needs to be approved and issued back to the subcontractor, for example, so they can solve the issue or continue out the work. There may be an impact on the schedule and a notice of delay may need to go out. Once the work is completed, the subcontractor needs to provide an update on the work completed to get paid for it. So that example we've just described traditionally may take 2 or 3 different systems. It may also take some manual processes, such as maybe calling or dealing with the people directly via phone or email. And then you don't have the overview or insight exactly where the issues came from, where these RFIs or variations stemming from. This is something that can be really easily managed across an ecosystem by streamlining, connecting different construction processes in a central environment. So in summary, an ecosystem provides an efficient way to remove duplicate information and reduce efforts to get work done to deliver your project. It connects everyone in a central project environment. Most importantly for the site team, the latest information is easily accessible and searchable. And for the executive team, it's reportable. You can learn from the data that's being captured on the ecosystem. Okay, so how does that align to lean? If we look at lean, some of the core principles of lean is to reduce waste. And really, in terms of waste, we look at 8 different kind of great wastes that can be reduced. So we're going to go through each of one of these one by one, starting off with transport. Within an ecosystem, site teams, as we said, can easily access the latest information, such as drawings, documents, models, not only from the web application, but also the mobile application. In construction today, we still are heavily reliant on paper. And a prime example of where this may cause issues is if a document controller or a site manager has to physically bring up the latest revisions of drawings to site and should remove the old revisions. And I'm sure everyone in the room today has come up across the issue where rework or waste has occurred because of old revisions hanging around on site and someone working off them. I know I have. In addition to that as well, every single site member doesn't have visibility or understanding of what the latest revision is. So to the general worker, the electrician or the subcontractor, they may not know what the latest revision is, and it causes challenges. People are going to leave latest revisions in their pocket, on scaffolds, in their bags. They're just going to work off them if they're around. So that becomes very challenging for the site team to really manage exactly what revisions the team are working off. In terms of motion, this is all aligned with collaboration. Breaking down the barriers of communication by providing a one-stop shop for all project stakeholders to communicate together. Most important, it keeps everyone on track and on the right path to deliver a successful project as a team. In terms of waiting, if we can link this one into transport, right? Having to wait around for the latest information to get to site. Understanding what has changed from revision to revision. So for example, in an ecosystem, all team members can be notified directly via mobile application of new drawing revisions being available. We don't have to rely on that paper being removed from site. And those instant notifications then can be trigger you to open up the drawings and compare to a previous revision to see exactly what's changed. In terms of that as well, if team members have to wait around for information, productivity reduces, focus is going to reduce, and potentially it may impact enough to increase the cost or time for delivery of the project. With those notifications, as we said, you can compare to old revisions. This is really helpful, for example, if the design team just forgets to put on a revision cloud, it happens, you can easily still compare. So with the ecosystem, we're trying to make sure that no matter what use case, you can really reduce the amount of waiting and in turn rework and waste. Over processing is something that is a big challenge, again, within construction industry, and especially when it comes to general construction software. This ties into how you can manage permissions and access to the information that everyone needs to access. If you give someone access to a system and you don't limit the visibility of information that they have, the chances are that they're going to start clicking around and may get a little bit interested in other aspects not really relevant to them. This can result in overload of information, or as I've said, just wasting time just going through information. In addition to that as well, typically with general construction software, you might just get email and notifications for every single change on the project. This means that if you're getting notified for every single change, you're not really going to take focus of the notifications that are relevant to you, and you may miss an action or something that's really relevant to driving the project forward. So with the ecosystem, a regimented permission matrix is developed so that every single user, depending on their role or whatever way you want to set it up, can get notified for the information only relevant to them. But also, if they don't have access to specific information, they just don't see it. if you give someone access to something and they can, to a document structure, for example, however, they don't have access to the folder, chances are they're still going to try to click into it. So really, with the ecosystem, we can configure what people see, reducing that risk of overprocessing. In terms of overproduction, we've got two critical components when it comes to construction, which is time and cost. One main challenge related to the construction program is that the site team don't have enough visibility of the key activities that need to occur when they're or when they need to be actioned. So typically the construction program is going to be generated in MS Project or P6. Then it's going to be printed out on a few A1 sheets and stuck up on the site office. By the time it's printed out and stuck up on the office wall, that information is probably going to be out of date anyway. But also you have the challenge that the construction team and the general workers, they don't have, may not have the knowledge to read a Gantt chart. So how are they supposed to understand what needs to happen? They may overproduce in this case, or again, may not produce enough. With an ecosystem, it makes it very easy to understand in an easy format what people need to do and who's assigned to do that work directly from the schedule. In lean terms, they solve this by utilizing lean pull planning and planning sessions every day where the pull planner will understand what granular tasks need to happen for that day and assign it out to relevant team members. The progress will be tracked on a day-to-day basis. In an ecosystem, again, it pulls in that pull planning into a digital environment so we can create these digitally and keep everyone on the same path and have visibility of this pull plan directly, again, via mobile or the web. Not only then related to time is the cost. So traditionally as well, the quantity surveyor may not have the visibility of what's happening on a day-to-day basis or how progress has been made. So again, with the ecosystem, by pulling in every single department, the quantity surveyor will have that visibility, understand exactly where we are today, and can access this information without having to request information from the site manager or project manager in this case. By keeping everyone on the same path, we reduce the risk of overproduction, not only from that time perspective, but also from that cost perspective. Skills is a very interesting one. One of my main use cases for how we can align to an ecosystem and why it's important is the site manager role, okay? Today, the site manager role is very, very admin heavy. And typically that means that the site manager is going to be stuck in the site cabin, updating Excel sheets, sending emails, etc. And they get very frustrated in this and do not want to be doing that role. With the ecosystem, as we said, and the ability to manage via mobile devices, be it a phone or a tablet, that site manager can be out on site, meaning that they can be overseeing the delivery of the project without having to transport themselves again between different areas. It decreases the wait times, but also then make sure that the team aren't over-processing or overproducing. So this is really key, and I have some metrics around this to show some use cases of Procore customers on how they are saving time and in turn saving cost. And we'll show that in a few slides. Defects. So traditionally with defects, if you're not using a system like that, it's not very lean at all. Typically with defect management, you're going to have a team that is up on site, understanding the issues that need to be solved. They'll jot them down on maybe a piece of paper. Following that, then they'll go back to the site office, update an Excel sheet and issue emails out to each team. And each team goes out independently then and resolves the issues. By creating a digital defect management system within the ecosystem, it means that you have one place to capture all issues, defects or snags, whatever way you want to call it. And it means that you have a streamlined workflow then to keep everyone on track to deliver or the resolution of these defects whenever you need them to. This is really important, not only during the construction phase, but also to allow you to get to that PC or practical completion when you need to do so. So defect management within the ecosystem is highly important. Finally, then we've got materials. Having visibility of not only what materials are required, but what materials have been ordered, but also what materials have been installed. Again, if we look at overproducing, the potential is we don't have the correct information. It's going to lead to rework and waste, which may lead to also having to overproduce. So having visibility of how you're utilizing materials, especially in this day and age, which with the challenges we have around materials, is highly important. We want to make sure that we're reducing the chances or risk of that rework and waste, so we can manage our materials more effectively now. And we will talk about some of the challenges around waste just in one moment. Okay, so challenges for construction businesses today. Just want to highlight out some of the key challenges that I'm sure you're all aware of. The first one, aligning heavy to what lean and the ecosystem can do for you, is waste and rework. One of the biggest challenges here we have is, the construction industry is one of the most guilty suspects when it comes to waste and rework. We don't like change. Haven't we done it this way before? It's often something that's heard across sites. From a business perspective, we want to make sure that we can reduce that waste and rework as well to increase the efficiencies across the team. But in turn, we can become a more competitive business when bidding for new work. So that's another added bonus of reducing waste and rework outside of the issues we've just mentioned in terms of aligning with the 8 great wastes. Next up is labor shortages. In construction, the answer has always been, okay, we're running behind schedule, let's throw more people at the job. The time's coming now when that labor is not going to be there. We might have issues either attracting people into the industry, getting the labor we need or we think we need to deliver that project. So it's time that we start to work smarter, not harder, and utilize a construction ecosystem and lean to reduce, as we said, the waste and rework, and incorporate a planning system that we can effectively deliver the project without having to add more resources. One of the ways we can do this is with the ecosystem. One of the main advantages is having the access to that data across existing projects to really hone in on areas that you may be able to improve, so you can become a more productive, efficient business with the resources that you have today. Materials, I'm going to talk about in the next slide. But really, as we're all aware, there is a lot of challenges around materials. The cost of materials is increasing, and in some cases becoming hard to get. So we really, again, want to make sure that we are reducing the rework, making sure we only have the materials we need and not materials that we think we may need because we're going to have to do a lot of rework within the project. Increased complexity of projects. Architects and engineers are designing the impossible. Timelines of projects are becoming increasingly shorter, and there's a need for all project stakeholders to really communicate effectively to achieve the level of complexity within a project nowadays. Add another layer of different softwares on top of that, and it can become very volatile and an increasingly complex challenge to face. In terms of the next 3 options on the slide, we're going to focus on that again in a few other slides in terms of implementing the construction ecosystem. Okay. A little bit of a transition there. In addition to that as well, we can see some of the challenges that we're having in the industry and some of the numbers around that. So if you take, for example, the 52% of rework is because of poor data and communication. With an ecosystem, it's really easy to reduce that because that is the general use case for having an ecosystem, as we've said, centralizing communication and having the data. In addition to that as well, let's take advantage of the fact that we're in a generation now that uses technology on a day-to-day basis. You know, mobile phones and tablets are everywhere. People are creating WhatsApp groups to communicate within projects. The challenge is there that it's still siloed. So when you have examples like that of what I've just mentioned, it's really easy to transition into a central environment because they're already using technology for their benefit. So within the ecosystem, the adoption rates increase, and you can have high success of increasing your operations very quickly and very easily. In addition to that as well, I just want to highlight out the top left note there where the price of materials rose every month between September 2020 and September 2021. This is a large issue within construction now. There is a few options in terms of what we can do for that, and a few examples I've already mentioned throughout the presentation. But the other option I'd like to just mention outside of this is start to understand the sustainable options available to you now in terms of materials. There's a lot of great materials out there that are sustainable and a lot of ongoing projects to deliver better materials for the construction industry in terms of sustainability. So just something on the side to have a look into if you are increasingly faced or with these challenges around materials. Just want to highlight out again in terms of the complexity we've already discussed. And I don't need to tell you again that it's complex, we all know. But just if you look at the amount of stakeholders that can be involved within a project, it's very hard trying to keep everyone on the same page and making sure that we can work together to deliver a project. The main contractor sitting in the middle there is really acting as like a puppet master, right? Understanding what the client needs, subcontractors working on time, are they getting the materials they need, the equipment, etc. So it can be really increasingly challenging. So again, within the ecosystem, we look to solve for this in a few different ways, which I'm going to go through now. So implementing lean processes via platform technology. As an example, I just want to highlight out Procore's platform or Procore solution to the ecosystem. If you look at the top, you can see from design team to client to subcontractor, everyone will communicate in one single place. And not only is everyone communicating in one single place across the construction phase, but also we have the ability to communicate right from pre-construction up to handover across different aspects of construction. It might be from project management, how you manage your resources, but also the financial aspect of your project. Typically and traditionally, these are going to be managed in different solutions, with again, very siloed and can become challenging having insight to understanding where you are in terms of project delivery. What's more important as well there is if you look underneath the Procore icon, we've got the Procore App Marketplace. The App Marketplace is a place where other point solutions that may be used for specific processes in construction or a system that you already use today can be integrated directly into Procore. And this means that you have full visibility of the insights across not only Procore, but your other systems that you're using to make better decisions going forward in terms of project delivery, it could be quality and safety, or business insights as a whole. And that's where our product Procore Analytics comes in, where you can analyze all the data across these different instances in one central environment. If you're trying to analyze data across different segmented solutions, you don't have the full picture of your challenges you're facing or where you're at today, or what you can do to improve. Just an example here of a recent survey that we created. This survey went out to site managers, project managers, and project engineers in terms of how an ecosystem can support in reducing risk and in turn rework and waste. As you can see here, across those 3 roles, on average, we're saving 12 hours a week. That's a large amount of time, considering that we only have a 40-hour week generally without any overtime. This means that as a business, you can take on more projects. If this is some savings that you're doing across different projects, you've less reliance on large labor forces as you're able to increase that productivity. So really that ROI that we talked about at the start of the presentation is there to be witnessed. And we have customers today, as we can see, that are saving time and in return, saving money. In terms of implementing lean processes via a platform, or in general, any technology across your business, these are my recommendations for you all today. The first one is understand the challenges that you want to solve for. Yes, software will aid that, but if you don't have full understanding of where you're at today, what you can do to improve in the short term versus the long term, and across all departments, you're going to solve challenges one at a time, which is going to cause more challenges down the line because you're not centrally collaborating and that you don't have that full insight into your operations. Some other core recommendations I have for implementing any solution in construction is really look at the ease of use and choose some KPIs that you want to measure so you can see how successful that technology has been to help solving your challenges. Start with the end in mind. Make sure when you're setting out the requirements for your challenges, you have that understanding, as we've said now, in the midterm and the long term. If you start to look to implement many changes all at the once, you're going to increase the risk of failure and can cause issues with solutions not being used as you thought they would be. So try looking at implementing over a period of time, which really ties into that delivering a roadmap. Roadmap is really important so you can understand and journey out where you're going to be in 5-10 years time, building that strategy for your business. This decision, as we've said many times now, shouldn't be just made at the executive level. It needs to incorporate all different departments. So from the site manager, the quality manager, safety manager, quantity surveyor, planner, everyone or every single department should be able to understand their challenges and raise their challenges and proactively look to solve those challenges in the best way forward. And that is where something like an ecosystem comes in really helpful because it helps solve a lot of challenges all at the once across different departments. This means that it can be aligned throughout the business and you don't have to choose different softwares to solve specific issues for you. Next on to my favorite one is the data. One of the best outcomes of implementing a ecosystem successfully is having that data to analyze and measure. Data is really king nowadays with technology. The more data you have, the cleaner insights that you'll get. And with an ecosystem, you can transition away from those static reports that you may issue out on a weekly basis to an analytical environment where you have full visibility in real time of your operations. This means you can get a better understanding of what you can do going forward to align with lean processes to reduce waste based off the actual performance of previous projects. And finally then, just the open API. Open API is as critical as data, which we're going to cover again in the next section. Okay, so first of all, what is an open API? An open API is the ability to connect any solution that teams can use in a business or a project together to reduce the siloed information. So we've talked about connecting different solutions into the ecosystem. an API is what makes that possible. If there's certain aspects of your business that you want to stay in specific software, that's totally fine, but just make sure that you have that open API, as it really allows you to achieve that ecosystem goal. If there's no API, you're going to be very limited in terms of how you can get that data. Your teams are going to be working in different solutions. And in terms of data, you're going to have to manually export out the information out, which can increase the risk of having duplicate information across different systems. The main importance for an API, as just in summary, is having full insights into your operations. It's connecting people, software and technology, and lean processes together in the ecosystem. And also those existing point solutions within the API can be integrated into the ecosystem. Finally, then, I just want to finish on Internet of Things. This is really the next level of insights. So it may look like pie in the sky thing, information for you all now, but I can promise you that there is companies today that are utilizing Internet of Things into an ecosystem. And what this is connecting not only data and information, static information across a platform, but it's actually connecting the hardware, the data sources we use in terms of, delivery trucks, cranes, drones, etc., into your information ecosystem, so you can report on it. We've talked about sustainability, so having insights onto your carbon footprint can make a massive impact. With the use of AI and machine learning, we can predict when issues may occur, such as safety issues, by having cameras detect potential issues before they even occur. So it really is looking at like a big brother scenario for construction. But as I've said, there's a lot of business today that are reaping the rewards from being on that journey of the ecosystem, many years now. Okay, so that is me. I'd like to thank you all very much, and I would open it up for any questions.
Thanks, Tom. I'd like to thank Tom for a very insightful presentation. Again, as I said at the start of the webinar, if you have a question, just pop it into the question box and we'll pose them to Tom. We have a few questions in already, Tom. How can businesses leverage platform technology as a differentiator to win more tenders?
Yeah, absolutely. So I kind of touched on that within the presentation. By having the insights into how you deliver projects, you can really get an understanding of areas you can improve on to reduce costs, such as the amount of materials used, the type of subcontractor you're using, and the issues that they may be causing. So using those insights, you can really make decisions going forward that can support to allow you to be a more competitive business and in terms of tendering. Okay. So the insights is key there to allow you to be a competitive tenderer.
Okay, great. Another question in from one of the attendees: how to get buy-in from site teams for construction technology?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's often a challenge that's faced by many companies. Yeah. And it's most important that you bring them on the journey, that you're not only implementing that technology for the business, but it's being implemented to help them on their day-to-day. The example of what I mentioned about the site manager, like not wanting to be in the site office, that is true for the majority of site managers I've ever met in my career. So handing them a mobile device and saying, off the site, go ahead and just complete your site diary in the day at the end of the day, or make sure that you do the actions you need to, they're absolutely delighted. And one thing that I did previously was, in terms of roll out a pilot, and pick someone specifically that I thought would be challenged in terms of implementing the ecosystem. And by the end of that pilot, that site manager in this case was standing up in front of the whole company saying that this is the way forward. We all need to adapt. So there's just an example for you of how we could do that and get that buy-in.
Great, perfect. Another question: what are some of the ROI benefits experienced from using platform technology for lean construction?
Yeah, so it's really an enabler and a supporter of allowing you to really reduce those 8 great wastes that we talked about.
Okay.
Those examples there that I've given in terms of reducing the transport, rework on waste, as we've said many times now, they're big challenges that we face today, day to day. Reliance on the labor shortages, material shortages, making sure that everyone, we can do what we need to with the labor force we have, using technology without having to increase time to get answers or find answers or whatever it may be, is really the way we can become a leaner business by using a platform technology. So really everything I mentioned around the 8 great wastes.
Okay, perfect. Just a final question here. Again, I said, if anyone has any further questions, just pop them into the question box. What are some interesting use cases and stories from using platform technology in the field?
Okay. Yeah, there's many. So one story that I would have is especially around safety. Okay, so let's say an incident occurs on site. There's a lot of information that has to happen and a lot of actions that have to happen. So within an ecosystem, for example, and specifically in this case, Procore, within our instance tool, we can trigger if a specific type of incident happens at a specific risk level, the right people get notified in the company straight away and can take action on what needs to happen. Sure. I've been in, I've had an accident myself on site, and I remember the time in relating to before anything happened, was a long time. So it's really giving you that instant access to action what you need to straight away, and not having to wait around for people to do what they should be doing. Absolutely.
Okay, Tom, that's all the questions we have. Your presentation was very detailed. Sincere thanks again to Tom for today's webinar presentation. Please note that a copy of this webinar will be sent out to everyone who attended. Information will be sent out shortly in relation to the next webinar taking place on the 23rd of February. For information on this and other webinars, the annual conference, the annual book of cases, and other LCI resources, please visit leanconstructionireland.ie and follow the Lean Construction Ireland LinkedIn group page. Finally, thank you to everyone who attended today, and we very much look forward to meeting you at a future Lean Construction Ireland webinar. Have a lovely day. Thanks again, Tom. That was great.
Thank you.